Thank you, everyone, for sticking around. My name is Steve Greene. I'm a writer for IndieWire.com, and it is my pleasure to introduce to you two of the stars of this film, Allison Tolman and JoBeth Williams. All right, thanks so much for joining us.
You bet.
After this film. I feel like you can't really talk about this film without talking about Texas. It's where it's set. It's kind of in the DNA of the movie. As performers, for the two of you, what is it like to shoot a film like this on location and to sort of be in this environment and draw from that?
Well, I'm a Texan, and you're a Texan too. We're both Texans, right? So, that was a huge draw for me in taking the role, was getting to go back home and spend a little bit of time in Texas and tell a Texas story. And then I think also how entrenched it is in the sort of Austin, Texas music scene and style was really attractive to me as well. So it was nice. It just felt like going home. And it was really cool to show Sophie Texas, Sophie, who plays Sinaloa, is from the UK, obviously. And so that was really neat, to introduce her to sweet tea. And also scorpions, she's cool. This is a crazy place.
And then any particular things for you, JoBeth, about Texas that you were sort of able to draw upon for this?
Well, yeah. Having grown up in Houston, I was playing a woman that I felt I knew a lot about because I knew a lot of women like her, and that's what really drew me. I thought it would be so much fun to play that character. And also, like Allison, I just loved the whole milieu of the music world of Austin, which is a fabulous town. I wish I'd grown up there and not Houston. No offense to Houston, but it's such a great town. And the atmosphere of the movie, it just was luscious to me, just being out on that ranch, that property, and the beauty of it, and the sort of wildness of it, and the craziness of the characters felt very home to me.
And you mentioned the music. This isn't necessarily a musical per se, but I feel like that does kind of inform kind of the overall environment that you guys are working in. What was it like to sort of draw from the style of music that these characters are playing, and whether it's sort of around a fire or in a club, getting that environment too?
This is the type of music that my father and I sort of share a love for this style of music. So I was excited to go and get to listen to this style of music for a month in Austin. That sounded great to me. And you mentioned the scene sitting around the fire. I know you had to be angry during that scene and actually act, but I just got to sit and listen to these incredible musicians and my new sweet friend Sophie just jam out, and it was super, super cool. It was really a really kind of magical thing.
Yeah, you just sit around and listen to people play John Prine songs.
Yeah.
That's
big
the dream.
Bummer. What a hard day.
I think that's what I loved that about meeting the local musicians there and hearing their stories and listening to them play. And that's not a music that I grew up with because my dad was a classical singer. So I was around it and I heard it, but I don't know a lot about it. So I found it really enriching to be able to meet all these folks and hear their talent. It was incredible.
For Allison, your first scene, you're playing a character who, the first time we see her, she's sort of met with this giant wallop of a revelation. Does approaching a character like this change when the audience doesn't get a chance to sort of get to know you as a character first before you sort of have this great big change that happens, or is it kind of the same approach?
No, I think it's kind of the same approach, and I certainly, while this story really sort of follows Sinaloa and follows her arc, and she's sort of at the heart of it. I don't think that the audience ever feels fully comfortable with her and is I trust this woman. There's always something a little off about her, even before we know where the movie ends up. So, and I think I know I felt that way even just reading the first several pages, and I think people feel that way watching this first several minutes. So I think that when Merle does show up, I think it's like, oh, good. You're like us. You're like, nah, I don't know about this. So I think, in that way, it was kind of easy to slip right into it because you knew that the audience was going to be thankful to have someone who was sort of in their perspective, who was a little unsure of what was going on.
So you have this film has 2 directors. Does that dynamic on set change when you have 2 directors at the front, or is it not as different as people might think?
Have you worked with 2 directors before? I've never worked with 2 directors before. So this is my only experience doing that.
I've worked in a situation where there was one ostensible
Where there were many
director, and then there was one
Alan Smithy in the shadows.
very powerful, not official director, and that's a whole different thing. But this was really a collaboration, and they each sort of have their own areas where they, where they feel, I think, their strength is. And so it was great to get to enjoy both of their strengths.
Yeah.
And they're great people.
Yeah, and there was never, I think, a sense of just like, we both want to direct this because neither one of us can let go of it. It was like, we can put our skill sets and our brains together and we can make this better. So it was very much like, they knew exactly what their roles were, and we knew exactly what their roles were. And so it was never, that was, I think, one of my concerns going in was like, how does this work with 2 directors? Are you listening to 2 bosses all the time? Because that's not easy. But that was never really the case, I don't think, at all. So.
In this project, sort of given the story and the pacing, I imagine that this particular project, obviously always part of acting is reactions and nonverbal communication. But in this one, I feel like both of you are kind of called on to do a lot of acting and storytelling just in looks and in reactions and in facial expressions. Is that a challenge that you enjoy to sort of play, to act in a different way other than just kind of in these conversations?
I love it. I love that. I wish I had just footage of me listening to Sophie sing, because there was a lot of footage of me just listening to Sophie sing. And I think it's really fun because you don't have, I think you can just like let your play brain take over. You don't have to worry about like keeping anything in your head. You don't have to worry about lines or anything. And I really enjoy just reacting because I'm super lazy.
No, I feel the same way. I feel sometimes we're overburdened with words, and I prefer to let one's actions sort of tell the story and one's reactions tell the story. Because in life, we don't explain everything every minute, and so when you're working with wonderful actors like, Allison and Sophie in this, and you get to react off them, it's really a joy.
We're going to sprinkle in some audience questions here as we have one from Joe Dernberger for JoBeth. If you attended high school in Houston, what high school were you in drama theater there? I attended Reagan High.
Reagan, where's Joe? Is Joe here? Hi, Reagan. No, I went to Jesse H. Jones. And yes, I did do drama there, and I did a lot of, I don't know if you were involved in this, but speech tournaments where you went and did dramatic interp and duet acting and all of that. Speech tournaments, we used to call them.
Speech and debate.
Speech and debate, exactly. It's very big in Texas.
And then we have a question for Allison. Just simply, how do you choose your projects? What kind of goes into
Just money, like money.
That's why you chose this.
That's why I chose
know
this little indie movie.
because I got paid a lot. I'm sure you did too.
Don't tell Sophie. No. I try to just sort of choose my projects on a case-by-case basis, depending upon like what sounds good at that point in time. I do think I have in my brain like. When I took La Barracuda, it had a different name before. When I took this project, I really wanted to go do an indie film. I was like, I want to go do a small movie. This is something that I want to experience. I want to know what that's like. So I was kind of, ticked off that box. But yeah, I've been really lucky. I have an awesome team that never lets me get overwhelmed or feel like I have to take things that I don't feel in my heart or what I want to do. And I think I'm really lucky. I became successful so relatively late in my career that I don't feel, I feel kind of like every project I take, I look at as like, if this is the last thing I ever did, I want to feel like I was really glad that I did it. Because who knows when this ride could go away and I would be back working in IT. Probably not. You never know. The world is weird. So yeah, I don't know. I just follow my gut, and I've been really lucky, and I have great support. So.
Does the same go for you, JoBeth, or?
Money, 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 money.
Totally money. Totally money. I'm at an age where what's important to me now is the work interesting for me to do? I don't want to go and do a little indie film somewhere for no money with a boring role or with people I don't want to work with, and I don't have to, thank God. And so is it interesting? Is it different? Is it not me playing yet again another mother in jeopardy or, another lawyer or whatever? Is it something that will challenge me? And I felt this would be fun and was very different for me.
And one of the ways that I imagined it was different was that each of you both have some moments of real physicality in this movie. JoBeth, starting with you, obviously, for anyone who may be watching this who hasn't seen the movie, sorry to ruin the fact that the film maybe doesn't end great for JoBeth's character. For that particular scene, what were some of the logistics of that? Was that something you were? Was there stunt work involved, or?
Yes, okay. There was, and when I first agreed to do the movie, we talked about how it would be done, and I said, "Look, I have a bad back. I can't be thrown around, sadly." And they said, "We will get, a really good stunt double, and you don't have to worry about that." And they did, and it was handled really well and carefully. And so I found it actually kind of fun and exciting to do until I saw the cutting off of the digits, and I didn't like that much.
And then for Allison, obviously the scene with the dog is I can imagine could be very psychologically challenging.
Yeah.
When you have to sort of do a scene that involves an act of violence, whether it's against a dog or a person or wherever, how do you sort of get into that mental space without sort of going not necessarily too far in, but sort of creating a divide and sort of keeping your wits about you?
Yeah, that was a hard day, and I think that was probably my most demanding day. I don't know. You guys can, Julia, I don't know. Like, that was the day that I was the most nervous about. I was like, I need to know what day we're doing this, and I want to practice it, and I want to rehearse it. I have a little bit of a control issue. So if I'm nervous about something, I want to know all of the elements going into it so that I can control my anxiety about it. But then actually shooting it was a great joy. It's fun sometimes to go to that place and to just be able to live in a really terrible moment. Honestly, that's why we act. We don't act just so we can do comedy. We act because it's it's fun. It's fun to play with those things and not have them be real. And I felt really safe with Sophie. I felt really safe with our stunt dog team situation. And I had already shot the pilot for Downward Dog, so I had some dog training in my pocket. So I was like, we got this, dog. Also, sorry, Downward Dog fans, that I killed that dog. I apologize.
I want to hold it against you. So you have Sophie's character, and obviously the throughout the film, you're not 100% sure whether or not she's actually family or not. What kind of conversation did you have about sort of making her and you and for both of you really feel like you had that family connection and kind of came at least a little bit from the same place without making it too much of a contrast to where it maybe would tip the movie one way or the other?
I know for me, it was just about tracking Merle's thought process and tracking when she decided like at what point in time she was believing what, at what point in time she was like, I don't believe this, and what point in time she changed her mind. And once I'd kind of tracked that, I think it was pretty easy. And Sophie is like, I mean, I don't talk like this, guys, but she is like the most beautiful soul. Like, she is such an awesome, awesome girl. Like, she's just like ready and open to like be impressed and fascinated by the world. She's just the coolest chick. So she is super easy to act across from.
We have another audience question from George Harvey Dabbling for JoBeth. What do you consider the moment in your career that you have felt the most artistic self-satisfaction?
Wow, that's tough. I did a play at the Geffen about 8 years ago called The Quality of Life. Written by Jane Anderson. It was with Laurie Metcalf and Scott Bakula and Dennis Boutsikaris. And I played a woman very different than myself named Dinah, who had a real kind of, she was a Midwesterner. Oh gosh, she really was from the Midwest. And she was a Christian. And as the play went on, what was revealed was that her daughter had been murdered at the age of 19. And this woman attempting to hang on to her faith and her positivity was such a stretch for me. And, not to be bitter. And it was really hard for me, but I really loved doing her because at the end of it, I felt like I had lived in someone else's skin. And so that was very rewarding for me.
We have a mention from Sid Wilson, who said, did you all know that JoBeth has been the president of this foundation for the past 7 years?
Shout out.
Yay! Yay me! Thank you, Sid. We'll talk later.
So, I mean, being sort of president of this foundation, what does it mean to sort of go onto a set like this? I mean, like you said, it's an independent feature. It's outside of kind of the New York, LA bubble. It kind of is a testament to what kind of roles and projects that people can find and that are out there that aren't just sort of in the places that people would expect.
Yeah, and I love meeting members of our union who live in Austin or live in small towns outside of Austin, and talking about the foundation. I'm sure I'm really boring on the set because if you have a problem, you can call the SAG-AFTRA Foundation. Did you know about us? Blah blah blah. But there is a certain amount of proselytizing that we have to do so our members know about us. So I love, going out to other areas besides LA and New York and talking with actors there and meeting our members.
Well, Allison, JoBeth, thank you so much for joining us for this conversation. Barracuda is the film. Tell all your friends.
Thank you all for
Thanks
coming.
for coming.